Butthead starting the show.
Wow.
This is a classic example of white privilege, and you both have it.
What's that?
Anyone want to fill them in?
Yeah, I'll do it. Okay, so white privilege is when white people, particularly men, automatically assume they can take whatever they want. And they never have to worry about getting stopped by the police. And they have the inside track for any job
I've got this one, Aisha. They have the inside track for any job they want.
All right, welcome to the Great American Mail. It is a cloudy, soon-to-be rainy day in Atlanta, and we've got a lot to talk about because it's a very slow news day because the January 6th committee decided that they're going to have a quote-unquote emergency hearing. We'll tell you all about that. We're going to get to some Stacy Abrams news, the congressional ballot, talk about what's going on with the Supreme Court. I've got an idea there. As per usual, my take's going to be a little bit different, and a bunch of other things if we can get to it. But it is a very slow news day. It is clear out there that the media is just a complete waste of time. So one of the stories we've got in the stack today is about some Title IX changes. In fact, it'll probably be our first story. Some Title IX changes that Biden has come out with in the last couple of days. Title IX is the act that provides that there will not be discrimination based on gender in educational opportunities. And the left, as per usual, they destroy everything they touch. So they've basically been trying to destroy any semblance of Americanism on college campuses under the guise of this title. We'll tell you about that in a minute. But I want to start the show today talking about the nonsensicalness of the way these people think. Because every story we've got out here is complete lunacy. It doesn't make any sense at all. If you think through it, you literally, a child would understand that this isn't going to work, right? And then you wonder why these people are so miserable and why things were struggling. And at some point, we've got to win this war. And I mean, it is a war. I used to start the show, those of you listen on the traditional podcast or on YouTube now don't get this, but we used to start the show with the landing ground speech from Churchill, because that's really what we're into. I mean, we are literally alone trying to save democracy, trying to save Western civilization, trying to save the Constitution. I mean, these people don't deal in reality, so you can't go face to face with them, right? You've basically just got to go out there and retake the culture, and that's really where we are. I mean, it's sad to say that. But anyway, let's do a little bit more of Beavis and Butthead here, who have just now, apparently, I hadn't watched Beavis and Butthead in 20-some years. This showed up in my Twitter feed, which is one of the great things about social media, is that you can connect with people and learn different things. So apparently Beavis and Butthead have now gone to college. They didn't know what white privilege is. Now they do. Let's see how they react to it.
Exactly, Gage. Thank you for that. That's white privilege.
Whoa. And we have that?
You sure do.
I see.
Whoa. I never realized this stuff.
Yeah. You've really opened up my eyes.
Well, I'm glad we've been able to enlighten you. The real question is, do you think you'll be acting differently from now on?
I guarantee it.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
Step aside, please. We have white privilege.
Anyway, you can check it out if you want on the interwebs. It goes on from there, but you can imagine. So anyway, anybody with rational thought, would expect that would be how somebody would act if they really had white privilege. So I guess I have white privilege. So I'm going to talk about whatever I want to today. These people, really. All right. So it has real world consequences, though, because we all joke about this, but that little lecture is probably typical what these babies are being taught now, and they eat it up, even though it makes no sense, because Beavis and Butthead basically go on and go out and act as though they've been told they have this privilege, and all of a sudden, before you know it, they're in jail because they are not allowed to just take what they want. The police do arrest them. I mean, this is not reality, and it can't be reality, but these people don't understand that, which leads us to the news story. This is from some place called Common Sense. Biden's sex police. The White House is, by the way, when in the world did we start putting apostrophe S after S? There's just an apostrophe if there's an S. I mean, why do these people always have to change something? Really, it was fine the way it was, right? It's just unbelievable. Anyway, the White House's new regulations will gut due process rights for college students accused of sexual misconduct. I've actually got a lot to get to today. I'm going to live stream the unconstitutional show trial that is Nancy's January 6th committee starting at 12:45, which means I've got it. I literally have no time to spare, so I'm just going to have to get right to it on this one. So if you scroll down, basically the backstory is this. The Biden administration, the Trump... Take three. Take three. All right, come on. The Obama administration, spearheaded by none other than Joe Biden, okay, basically came across this, and under Title VII went and basically decided that they were going to try to get rid of the toxic cultures on college environments, right? And what they were going to do is they were going to come in and change the way that the process was conducted. Now, I'm going to tell you in a little bit what they basically did, but I want you to imagine that you were anywhere in America. I don't care where you are, that you get a speeding ticket, a parking ticket, that your dog bit somebody, right? That your child is accused of something. The first thing an average American would think is, well, I have process. I have rights. You can't just come in and do what you want and then sentence me or take things from me, right? I get due process rights. And again, I want you to also further understand that you are not talking about McDonald's or Target or Walmart or whatever. You're talking about an institution of government, because colleges and universities, which are governed by Title IX by definition, are the state. They are the government, okay? So anyway, so they came in and they basically did a lot of things, like you don't get to face all the basic traditional criminal rights, the ability to face your accuser, the right to a trial by your peers. Like, all that stuff was taken over under the guise of Title IX, and the idea was, well, it's not a criminal proceeding, and since it's not a criminal proceeding, you're not entitled to these rights technically. Now, we'll see what the Supreme Court eventually does, because unfortunately for people in America, right, when Trump came along, he got this woman named Betsy DeVos. And what she did is basically reverse everything Biden had done. And again, they had just issued quote-unquote guidance. So they didn't actually technically follow the process. DeVos followed the process. She came out with rules. She had hearings. And eventually she got these rules basically restored so that your process wasn't exactly like a criminal proceeding, but it was closely aligned with what you would expect, where you get a chance to hear the accusations against you. You get to see the evidence. You get to challenge the evidence, this type of thing. And I understand we're talking about younger people, and understand we're talking largely here about sexual abuse and things of that nature, which apparently there's no proof that it's more rampant on college campuses than it is in the public in general. But assuming for the sake of the argument it is, they did have some things in there to soften the way these things were done. Well, Biden has come in, and while we're all talking about the January 6th committee, and we're all talking about, these Supreme Court rulings and whatnot, they just floated these rules out there and nobody's talked about them, and it's an important story. So anyway, here we go. The new rules recommend a return to a single investigator model that was barred under the DeVos reform. This means one administrator can act as detective, prosecutor, judge, and jury on a Title IX complaint. The rules also undo many of the procedures for the accused, including the right to see all the evidence, inculpatory and exculpatory, gathered against him. It is an evisceration of the procedural protections given to the accused, says historian Casey Johnson, co-author of the Campus Rape Frenzy, The Attack on Due Process at American Universities. Under the DeVos rules, adjudication of a formal complaint required a live hearing to be held that included cross-examination. The Biden administration lifts this obligation. The Biden rules also call for a return to investigator initiated by third parties, even if based on rumors or misunderstanding, in which case male students can be subjected to Title IX proceedings over the objection of their female partners. Anyway, they mentioned the Robbie Suave case. So anyway, we got to move on to some other stories, but you now have the basics of it, and I wanted to make sure you're aware of that. And, elections, however you get elected, it really matters. And a lot of the stories we're going to go through, I want you to understand the Democrat Party and the people that run it no longer believe in the things that we believe. And that's very important. I mean, we are essentially almost back to, the 1850s, where you've got one half of the country that thinks slavery is just fine, and the other half of the country that says, no, it's not fine. At some point, I don't know that these two entities can continue to coexist. I just don't at all. So, what's this one here? Okay, all right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Supreme Court ruling when I get to that. That wasn't exactly what I was going for. I'm looking for, where is Wanda Sykes? Here we go. All right, so this is a little video of comedian Wanda Sykes. She went on one of the late night shows. And again, just to show you how differently these people think about the world, I want you to take a listen to Wanda Sykes here. I'm probably not going to play the whole 2 minutes. It's about 2 minutes. But I want you to listen to her and how she feels about life right now in the United States of America. Take a listen.
How you doing?
I'm a black gay woman and I have a daughter, so I'm not doing so well right now.
Now, stop her right there. I'm a black gay woman and I have a daughter. Now, that's supposed to tell me something? What's that supposed to tell me? She lives in the United States of America. Look, she's a lot richer than me. So, she probably has Camus, $200 bottles of wine at night, and I have $20 bottle of wine at night. But we're both drinking wine. I mean, it's like my sister before she passed used to often talk about the disparity among people, and I used to try to explain, like, look, if you're somebody like Bill Gates, or the Davos cloud or something, you're living a different life. I mean, you are. You're just waking up and there's a butler there, there's somebody putting things before you. Like, you get driven everywhere. You have a private jet, But if you're just a wealthy American, like Wanda Sykes is here, you're pretty much living. I mean, a Toyota is okay. A Lexus is better for sure. But not that big a difference, Flying on a plane in first class is better, but, there's not that big a difference anymore going back. I mean, you get on the plane first, you get a little bit better drink service, but, it's not that huge of a deal. There's not that big a difference in the life. And somehow Wanda Sykes thinks, oh, no, she's just like, oh, no, I live a totally different life. And again, we're not even talking about wealth differences here, which aren't that stark anymore. Now, again, I do it, as you know, I read a lot. And so luckily I'm back down to fun fiction. But I spent the last couple, I cheated again. I went classic fiction, right? So the last book I just read was The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. And this sort of theme is in that book all throughout it, that somehow being a black person makes you different. It doesn't. But he goes into a lot of the different things that the black community had to deal with. Well, that's true. But one of the things he ignores in that is he somehow assumes that blackness is something that makes you different from everyone else. It doesn't. It only if you want it to. Now, he tries to deal with it in the novel. I don't think he deals with it successfully, in my personal opinion. I wouldn't have had it as a top 100 novel, but it is, and I have to do, we have to follow the rules. Anyway, coming back to this, Wanda Sykes lives in a totally different universe because she thinks she's different because she's black, she's gay, and apparently also having a daughter makes you different than other people. Now, I reject that assertion. I think it makes you like everyone else. Like Winston Churchill used to talk about the race of English-speaking peoples. I kid you not. He felt like if you spoke English, you were a race of people. You might be Indian, you might be South African and black, right? The Indians are Asian. You might be American and black, whatever. And his point was the fact that you speak English, all the traditions comes with English culture because of that language, right? The right to a trial by jury, the right to face your, all these different things, all these different rights made us, our way of looking at the world more common. Now, people like Wanda Sykes, they're not smart enough to understand something like that, but they completely reject that notion. Right? Anyway, she continues. And they're all cheering, okay? Probably a bunch of white people. I can't see them.
You're a little salty?
I'm a little salty right now.
Oh,
okay?
Wanda, don't make me bring up
Sprinkle
Salty
salt.
Cracker.
Yeah.
I'll bring up Salty
Let's
Cracker.
put some flavor on
It
here.
just sucks, man. It really does. I mean, it's like the country, it's no longer a democracy, right? I mean, it's no longer majority rule.
No, certainly not.
Right?
Now, again, so this is now getting into the erudite, according to these people. They're smart. Now, majority rule, I say, there was majority rule in the country. When there was majority, well, we had slavery. Women couldn't vote. That used to be the majority proposition, right? We understand that. We understand, and most of us that had an education, I don't know if she had or she didn't, understand about the tyranny of the majority, right? Just because you're in the majority doesn't mean jack squat. I mean, the majority can be in favor of all kinds of things that are oppressive. But she continues.
Certainly
Yeah,
on the representation of the Supreme Court.
It's no longer majority rule, and I mean, it's like these judges that just they basically lied when they were being
debunked yesterday. You listened to the show. We debunked it. Even we went to their sources. That nobody lied.
The confirmation hearings, right?
Again, more cheers, by people who are uninformed.
Yeah.
So how can you be a Supreme Court justice and you just lying? You know what? They had their fingers crossed or something, or what? I mean, it's just a bunch of horse. It really is. Yeah.
Well,
Now I make this point all the time. Do you feel like you're winning? Because they think we're winning. They think, oh my God, wow, there's just constitutionalism going everywhere. We can't stand the Constitution. I mean, do you feel that way? This is again, these people are not well. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. They're not well. The communists, if they don't get every single solitary thing they want, and if everybody doesn't do everything, then they're losing. Okay, and if you read Hayek, The Road to Serfdom, a bunch of other novels, and I'm sorry, not a novel, but pieces of work in this issue, he talks about one of the problems with leftist governments, with socialism and communism and fascism, all leftist regimes. One of the problems with them is the people attracted to that form of government are going to be the type of people without the proper temperament. In America, you need the type of temperament of like, look, we're going to make you do all of the things we agree, okay? I mean, you're going to have to educate your children to a certain age. We're going to have a police department. We're going to have, we're going to have a fire department, right? When you start getting to, we're going to force everybody to read Shakespeare. Whoa, hey, now we're not going to do that. You can read Shakespeare if you want, She doesn't live in that world. You will do what Wanda Sykes wants. You will benefit her class of people, which apparently is black, gay, and with a daughter, or you will be told what you will do. You will be put in the gulag. That's just the way they work. And she's got one more thing here I want to tackle real quickly. And again, folks, this is recent. I mean, this is something that I would flunk a seventh grader in civics for this.
Last stand up.
Go ahead.
Well, no, please, ma'am.
No, well, to me, it's like the problem is that middle stuff. It's those states in the middle, that red stuff. Mm-hmm. Why do they get to tell us what to do when the majority of us live out, New York, California, and we're paying for all this crap, really? I mean, right? Yeah. We're footing the bill.
Well, that's the union. It's supposed to be representative democracy, but it turns out to be minority rule right now.
Okay, so we've already talked about minority rule. That's just stupid. But again, she doesn't seem to understand the basics of how the government works. Understand, Wanda, the Supreme Court returned it to the states. I'm pretty sure you're from California or New York. Pretty sure your right to whatever the heck you're doing is not impacted by people like Clarence Thomas and their federalism. As to the idea of you're paying for it, I reject that assertion. And again, I don't have time to get into it today because we got to really keep it to 40 minutes. I'd really love to be able, if I can get you up to speed in less than that, because I really got to do some preparing to go live at 12:45. But look, this whole notion, and I hope the Supreme Court will get there, that we send money to Washington and then Washington distributes it back. The idea, right, that it's red states that somehow prefer that and want that. The other problem with it is this: when we started with the New Deal, I want you to understand, because we're going to talk about this week, and we may talk about it today, but they're talking about codifying rights. Well, they don't have the authority to do it. The only authority they might have is under the Commerce Clause, which is what they used in the New Deal, right? In fact, I'm probably going to put together a single issue podcast. There is one. If you go to greatamericanmail.substack.com, if I do say so myself, it is probably the best single issue podcast up there. Right? It's talk about, I think it's entitled something about how we got from the Commerce Clause to here. And it talks about how we went in the 30s from saying the government could regulate anything, even wheat that you grew on your property and you didn't sell into the market. They said, well, you could have, and because you could have sold it to the market, you're affecting the interstate market, and therefore we can regulate you. And everybody said, well, then you can regulate anything. And they're like, yeah, that's right. And, it took a long time for that to get corrected. But it culminated in the Obamacare case in the mid-2010s, when 4 justices of the Supreme Court said, oh, yeah, we can use the Commerce Clause to make you buy insurance. And then lately you've got 3 that says, oh, yeah, we can use the Commerce Clause to make you put something in your body. That's insane. You do not have that right, nor can you codify rights, okay? But this whole idea behind this is just literal insanity. You cannot codify rights, these people. And again, coming back to the point, though, about federalism, it's not the red states that are driving this notion that's happening out there. So, Wanda, you're just not right about that. You're not right about any of this stuff, and maybe you should learn to be happy. So she's not alone, though, so let's get to a couple others I had. So this is another person out here who's big on the left. It's, I don't know, now she's just going by Joe, and she's got like 439,000 people on Twitter that she follows, and she's constantly tweeting out these things. And again, this passes for erudition. This passes for intelligent thought on the left. So you're telling me that teachers can't talk about race, sexual orientation, or gender. They can't teach certain kinds of math or talk about slavery, and they can't even say the word gay, but they can lead their students in prayer. Are you effing kidding me? Now, again, we're going to get to the prayer decision in a minute, and that's why I brought these up. Okay, here's Ilhan Omar, an immigrant that came to this country. She has 3 million followers on Twitter. She's in Congress, okay? Supreme Court has just ruled that public school teachers can pressure students to join in prayer at public school events, but also retaliate against those who don't join. Religious freedom in America is dead. Okay, I don't understand what these people understand or don't seem to understand. But if you look at the case, okay, if you look at the Kennedy case that came out yesterday, it basically here's what's going on, and this is what I wanted to get to about the Supreme Court today. I think something big could be going on. We've got some more decisions to come out. We'll see. We'll know later in the week because I don't know how many more decision days they have, but they're definitely going to take off for the recess for July 4th. July 2nd is this Saturday, so the 4th would be Monday. So you're going to get it this week. But there looks to be something happening on the court, and that is this. John Roberts seems to be losing his grip on being able to control some of these justices. And I said this, I tweeted about it, I talked about it last week. You had Republican majorities on the Supreme Court. You had majorities on the Supreme Court that thought Roe was wrongly decided. And for whatever reason, now you've gotten a decision that says, hey, you know what? Sorry, John Roberts, I know you say you will let this law, uphold this law, and you're not going to overrule Roe, which is, sort of a quote-unquote squishy moderate position. But there were 5 justices that said, no, it's wrong. We're going to reverse it, send it back to the states. They also stood up for Second Amendment rights. But I think almost a bigger decision was what we saw yesterday. And again, I don't have time to get into break down the opinion. Maybe depending on the news week, I might do it later in the week because I know a lot of people like the law stuff, and we hadn't had a chance to break these opinions down yet. But essentially what's going on in the Kennedy case is this. There's always been in constitutional jurisprudence the tension between the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause, right? You got people out there go, hey, I have the free right to exercise my religion. And people go, yeah, you do. There's no question about that. But what if I want to do it in school? What if I want to stand up and lead a bunch of people at prayer in the morning? And people said, no, that's an establishment of a religion, because even though the teacher's not doing it, if the students voluntarily get up and do it, that might be seen or interpreted as other people as the establishment of a religion. And whenever that tension ever reared its ugly head, the Supreme Court traditionally just favored the Establishment Clause. They said you can't do it because that might be an establishment of religion, and the government is supposed to be neutral. What you're seeing out of this Supreme Court this year, and we saw it with the decision to permit religious schools to get money. In other words, it was a case earlier in the term that was released, I think, a week ago that said if you are giving vouchers to parents to go and pick out schools, you cannot say they can't do it for a religious school. Now, obviously, you can't say here's only money for a religious school, but you can't discriminate and say you can only use it for non-religious schools. That's also inappropriate because it violates the Free Exercise Clause. Same thing with the Kennedy case here. So it started, and again, this is why these people, let's go back to this tweet. Where is it here? That's why these people go back to this tweet. The Supreme Court just ruled public can pressure students. That's not what happened at all. What happened was he waited until after the game. He did it alone, and then people found out he was doing it, and then they wanted to join. And he said, you join if you want, you do what you want, I'm not coercing you. Traditionally, the Supreme Court would have struck that down. They would have said the fact that it's happening on school grounds. I mean, there's a long lemon test. I don't have time to get into it again today, but I just want you to be aware. What's going on here, I believe, is a little bit of a shifting of the court towards a more appropriate historical view of the Constitution. And I think it's happening because a lot of people, and again, you have to give Trump credit here, Trump justices, Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Gorsuch, they are not the Kennedy, they're not the O'Connor type of Republican justices. They're going, no. We're going to go back to the traditional view of the Constitution. They're breaking with Roberts, and we'll see how this goes in the upcoming term. But let's get to more of this. So Hillary's out there. Again, we talked about Hillary yesterday, I believe, because we talked about Juan Williams yesterday. I just don't know why these people think this woman sells. I don't get it. But anyway, here's Hillary.
Justice Thomas has sort of floated that out there about contraceptive rights and
Yes.
contraception and about same-sex marriages, but other justices have pushed back to say, no, he's really sort of on his own with that.
Well,
Don't believe that?
Well, he may be on his own, but he's signaling, as he often did. I went to law school with him. Mm-hmm. He's been a person of grievance for as long as I've known him. Resentment, grievance, anger. And he has signaled in the past to lower courts, to state legislatures, find cases, pass laws, get them up. I may not win the first, the second, or the third time, but we're going to keep at it.
So you're saying people pay attention to
Yes,
this?
the people he is speaking.
Now, look, folks, I want to go ahead and debunk this. That's not what Clarence Thomas is doing at all. Not at all. But it's just, I bring this up because we say this all the time. The communists like Hillary Clinton, they are brilliant at using your values against you and projection of what they're doing. Your natural reaction to that is to go, well, I don't like somebody who's full of resentment and grievance and anger, right? I mean, what in the world? Clarence Thomas, I mean, given what he's gone through, I'm frankly shocked, that he maintains the demeanor that he maintains. And again, he's been on the court, and Clarence Thomas was a conservative justice from the very beginning. And you have to understand, those of us who remember that, I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the high-tech lynching. I don't think I'll ever forget it. That, by the way, Senator Biden oversaw. But Clarence Thomas, people didn't know he was going to be that conservative, right? What happened was, he was replacing Thurgood Marshall, the first black justice, and it was just resoundingly understood, it shouldn't be, but that we were going to nominate a black person to replace him. And so they weren't looking for the best nominee, they were looking for the best black nominee. And they went and got Clarence Thomas. And what have we talked about? We talked about Judge Bork. Well, Bork, he had been borked, I think I may have mistakenly said yesterday in 1988. It was 1887. I apologize for that. That seat eventually went to Kennedy. But before it went to Kennedy, they had to get rid of Bork. And what happened with Bork was he had too much writing out there. You knew exactly what he thought, and he clearly told you at his hearing. And then Biden was able to use that and broadcast it and make it into a show, which he did, and he didn't get through. So by the time you get to Clarence Thomas, right, this would have been George H.W. Bush's first appointee, right? They knew enough to go, okay, go find somebody that doesn't have a record. And so Clarence Thomas had been the head of the EEOC, and then he'd been put on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, but he didn't have much of a track record. So nobody knew how he was going to rule on a lot of these things. They knew he was a conservative, right? They knew that, but they didn't know how conservative. And from the very beginning, he's never wavered. He has been as conservative as he's been his entire career. So I don't know what Hillary's talking about, resentment and grievance and anger, but she's just full of it. Anyway, let's see if it's got any more here to hear from her.
Which is the, right-wing, very conservative judges and justices and state legislatures. And the thing that there's so many things about it that are deeply distressing, but women are going to die, Gail. Women will die.
Okay, all right, so the women will die crowd. All right, so again, I mean, nothing to see there other than Hillary Clinton just out there completely botching most things. I really don't understand why the Democrat Party, we shall see. I've got a polling stuff I just added. If you're on YouTube watching me, you saw I just added that because I forgot. There's some polling data out there I want to talk about real quickly. But I just don't think let me do the polling data now, because actually I'm not going to go in the order I did. So I happened to catch this morning, as you know, you don't look at any one poll. So what you have to do is you have to look, over polls of a few months. You have to track the same polls. You have to be careful because the polling people will try and trick you. Anyway, those of you who've been listening for a long time know that. Those of you who are new, we don't take any poll as gospel. We also know that there are some pollsters out there that we can trust. At least now we can. Typically what happens is somebody will show up on the scene and they'll be really, really good for, a few years, and then they'll get corrupted by the money, and then the next thing you know, you can't trust them. Zogby's the best example I can give you. Zogby showed up on the scene like 10 years ago, and he was just spot on for a couple of election cycles, and the next thing you know, you're like trusting Zogby, and he comes out with his poll, and it's garbage. So anyway, so right now, the probably the best pollster out there is a guy named the Trafalgar Group. I can't think of the name of the guy right now who does it. He wears a bow tie if you saw him. Anyway, doesn't matter. He came out with a poll last couple days. He has the congressional ballot. So this is the generic congressional vote. Quickie on that. Republicans have a built-in advantage in the House. So if the congressional generic ballot, right, is around anywhere from, say, +1 or +2 Democrat, that means they lose the House. They need it to be +3, +4 to hold, +5, +6 to have a big one. So right now, the aggregate of the polls is Republicans 2.8. But again, Trafalgar, I trust him right now. I have no reason not to. He says Republicans +9. Now that very well could be, given the environment. You've got an off-year election, which traditionally the party in power loses. You've got Biden is extremely unpopular. And there's also data upon data upon data that demonstrates that when the president's approval is low, that leads to crushing defeats in the House as well. But another poll, when I saw the Trafalgar poll and clicked over to it, NPR, PBS, and Marist poll has Democrats +7. Now, folks, that just can't be. Now, again, I think Trafalgar is correct, but the reason I bring this to your attention, that's a delta of 16 points. There's no way rational pollers doing proper things would come up with that. So, again, it's obviously rigged, all right? Anyway, just wanted to point that out to you. And, again, a couple things there. One, we don't know what's happening. But, two, I just want you to be aware when you see these polls about abortions and all this stuff, these polls are just garbage nowadays. Anybody can put out a poll to say anything they want, and there's proof of it. So let's see, where do we go to here? All right, so here we go. I got January 6th stuff. And do I have Stacy Abrams today? I thought I had Stacy Abrams today. I may not have Stacy Abrams. Oh, yeah, I do have Stacy Abrams. All right, let's get to the January 6th stuff. So it turns out that the January 6th committee has called for an emergency hearing. We're going to hear from Cassidy Hutchinson live. She is a former aide to Mark Meadows and a high White House staffer. We don't know what she's going to testify to. I've heard rumor she's going to testify to the fact that allegedly Mark Meadows burned papers. Now, I don't know. We'll see. We're going to be covering it live. If you're listening on YouTube, subscribe. If not, come to the YouTube channel. You can check it out at 12:45. We'll stream the entire thing, and we'll have the video up there. You can watch that later if you want. Now, I've got a couple of tweets here, and I want to break you down about this January 6th committee. A couple things. We don't know what Cassie's going to say. She's already talked to the committee, so whatever they got, they got. All right, we don't know what they're going to come up with. But I want to say this. Every day that this committee goes on, the legitimacy of it is just greater in question. I mean, this is nothing but a show trial. They've shown us through the way they continue to act. I live streamed day 5 last night. I know it was late because I couldn't get to it last week. But, you had Adam and Kinzinger in there going to the additional un-American thing of he would literally, before questioning witnesses who he already heard from, he already knows what they're going to say, he literally would spend a couple of sentences basically telling in front of the witnesses, the evidence shows this, 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 and this, and then going, what do you think the evidence shows? I mean, it was just unbelievable that the type of violations they get. But one of the other things that's going on out there, I want you to understand how bad this is for our body politic. This is John Dean. He's a former Republican. He's one of the Republicans that flipped on Nixon and later got a reduced sentence for doing it. He was, I believe he was White House counsel during the Watergate eras, okay? He tweeted this out. There was only one surprise witness during the Senate Watergate committee hearings. On July 16, 1973, an unannounced witness appeared, Alex Butterfield, who testified to Nixon's secret taping, forever changing history. We've talked about this many times on the show. Big deal standard. The January 6th committee is dealing with a very high historical standard and springing a surprise hearing and witness tomorrow. If it is not really important information, it's going to hurt the credibility of the committee. Cancel now if you can't match. Now, folks, this is from a Republican. Now, you're going to lose credibility? What planet is this guy on? And this is a supposed Republican. You've got a committee that's operating in secrecy, won't share the information with the country, doesn't have anybody from the opposition party. And again, to John Dean, he's sitting here, well, this surprise witness, why, it's an outrage. It really is sad. Now, it just goes to show you. Now, here's a lefty. This is somebody on Twitter called Mueller, She Wrote. She's got 267,000 followers, which for a lefty isn't that big of an account. If it was a right-wing person, definitely be a pretty big account. But anyway, she's fairly influential out there. So it seems, here's her tweet. So it seems Cassidy Hutchins has received credible threats and could be tampered with by Trump World, and that she'll be testifying about something new like NARA docs or Holder footage. Holder is the film producer that had access to Trump. And Bannon is demanding info on why DOJ didn't charge Meadows for contempt. Bannon's saying, hey, you're charging me, you're charging Navarro, but you're not charging Meadows. What's up here, right? Lots going on there, but it's not really the point of the tweet. So I guess they need her testimony urgently because she could be intimidated to change her testimony. This is what goes again for your edition and enlightenment on the left. Folks, no you don't. You get her testimony under oath. It's forever preserved, right? What are you talking about? Okay? Or there's some kind of DOJ action involving her or Meadows or something she has new information about that will be revealed tomorrow. What? I mean, I could go on, but the point of this Mueller, she wrote nutcase is this is a person who devotes 90% of her, Twitter feed to things about Russiagate and all these fictions. And she doesn't understand that it's a hoax. She doesn't understand that she's living in a world of make-believe. She thinks it's all legit. I mean, the DOJ is not investigating this stuff. If they were, they would shut this committee down because it would be harming their ability to produce a later conviction. If the DOJ is involved at all, it would be going, hey, nah, don't do that. Don't do that. I mean, the whole idea, what world do these people live in? You think that Adam Schiff and Benny Thompson and all these people, they're not talking to people in the Biden administration? Anyway, whatever. Again, these people are not well. They're not well people. Anyway, so let's get to Stacy Abrams, and I'm going to beat the clock well today here because I'm at 35 minutes. I'm glad that I have a clock again. And anyway, Stacy Abrams is running for governor. And again, she blew it during the whole Jim Crow 2.0 because she basically said that it was Jim Crow 2.0 and we lost the All-Star game and everybody knows. And listen, this is how sick these people are. If anybody knows, it's Stacy Abrams, because Georgia has a situation where we have blacks out registering whites and blacks out voting whites. I'm not mad about that. Good for them, and God bless. They got to get people out to the polls. Good for you, okay? But then she plays this fiction as though somehow they're suppressed. I mean, it's just bizarre. Anyway, so she blew that in Georgia, and she took a little bit of a flack for it. Now, I think she's going to go down in flames largely because it's a very, very bad year for Democrats across the country. I think it's going to be a bad year for them in states like Georgia, that we're getting more and more data showing that red states have gotten redder and blue states have gotten bluer. This is not good news for Democrats in Texas and Georgia, states where you could start to actually win if you weren't nutty. But anyway, she is kind of nutty. But again, she stepped in it again. Here's her talking to what is his name? I can't think of his name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I will say, if I listen to the entirety of this interview, and I want to throw this little nugget out there real quick, he asked her a few tough questions that, he pushed back on the abortion polling that she talked about. There does seem to be a little bit of a change over there at CNN. We're watching that. But anyway, here's her talking about businesses and the abortion decision in Georgia. And take a listen to this. I want you to imagine you are running for the governorship of Georgia, and you say this.
Businesses such as Disney and Netflix have expressed their opposition to the so-called heartbeat abortion ban in Georgia when it was passed in 2019. Do you think those companies should pull their businesses from Georgia when and if this abortion restriction goes into effect?
Let's be clear. This abortion
Now, folks, if you're running for governor, the answer is no. No. Georgia is an excellent business community. It is a great place for business. Georgians are great. That's it. Anything other than that is a fail. And I mean a big fail. I'm talking F-.
And this extreme ban will take effect in a matter of days. The Attorney General and the Governor have already gone to the 11th Circuit to ask for the stay to be lifted. I would tell every single business and every single woman that they should do what is best for the women who work for them. They need to make certain that they are accommodating the very real healthcare challenges that will face women in the state of Georgia. It is my hope.
Anyway, she blathers on and fails for a little bit longer. But a couple things to understand there. The leftist mentality doesn't work for governance. Okay, it just doesn't, because you have to take inconsistent, idiotic decisions like that, right? You have to say no more drilling. Then you have inflation. Oh well, maybe the Saudis can drill some more, right? I mean, it's not workable. The other thing is that I want you to notice the budding fascism that's coming out of the Democrat Party. I mean, they're going from socialism and communism to budding fascism, where now you're going to get the corporate America in to help enforce the stuff. So you not only have government enforcing things, but you have the corporate America getting in on the game too, right? Anyway, you are now all caught up to date on all of the news of the day. And if you like the show, I hope you tune back in tomorrow.